Well, of course, Rebel News is based in Canada, and that's where most of our reporters are. That's where most of us were born. That's the center of gravity for Rebel News. But we care about the wider world. As you know, from time to time, I visit the United Kingdom and even Ireland, because those countries are going through things that we are going through here in Canada. And they may be further down the road. But don't forget down under. It's a lot further away. You can't just hop there overnight on a plane like you can to the UK or Ireland. But we have a base of operations in the Australian city of Melbourne, which is the capital city of Victoria, which is one of the major states down there. Avi Yemini, I call him a one-man army. And so he's down there. Of course, he did incredible coverage for us during the COVID lockdowns. Melbourne was really the most locked down city, not only in Australia, but probably the free world. Maybe in competition with Canada's Montreal for that. Avi's been covering a lot of things, and recently Islamification is being an issue in Australia, especially in Melbourne. Really a lot of similarities with Toronto. But they have one improvement that we don't have. They have one thing that I'm sort of jealous of, and namely their Senate is elected in Australia. Not just that, it's a kind of proportional representation, I'll make sure Avi corrects me if I'm wrong on that, that allows parties that are flavorful or more colorful than the median to get actual seats there. And so you have Greens and you have sort of one-man bands, and you also have a fixture in Australian politics, maybe you've heard of her. Her name is Pauline Hanson, and she's been the leader of the One Nation Party for decades. And although the mainstream media hates her, well, the parliamentary system allows her to win her Senate seat. Joining us now to talk about Pauline Hanson and her latest activities, which have got a lot of attention in Australia and around the world, is our friend Avi Yemini. Avi, did I properly introduce everything there? Did I explain how the Senate works okay?
I think you've done a pretty good job quickly there. Although I've got to criticize your bringing up my PTSD about COVID so early in the morning. But
it's early in the morning there. It's at night here in Toronto. Thanks for doing that. Listen, you really fly the flag for Rebel News Down Under all year round. And then once a year, you and I both go to the World Economic Forum. We sort of meet in the middle. And you've interviewed our Prime Minister more than I have, by the way, because Mark Carney has talked to you, I think, 3 times. And
I consider us friends at this point.
Yeah. Well, you've had more interviews with him than any other independent journalist. I want to talk about Pauline Hanson because she's quite a character. Australia allows people to be characters. There's a kind of acceptance that people can have spicy opinions down there. Your political class isn't boring. Am I right?
Well, I think that the way our system's constructed, it allows it to happen. I'm not sure that the establishment supports it or even would allow it. In fact, Pauline Hanson herself was previously jailed during her political career, and actually by the Conservatives, not even the left. She's been around for decades. I'd say she's one of the most consistent Conservative voices. She started off, as this fish and chip owner that resonated only with the fringe. But, the way she talks resonated with everyday Aussies. She was polling, back then, she's been in this for decades, warning about mass immigration. She's not a polished politician. She's your average Aussie. Like I said, she was a fish and chip owner, a fish and chip shop owner. She was polling back then at about 3 to 4%, which is still a lot. But today she's polling at about 20%. That means 1 in, 5 Aussies that actually support her message. And I think the reason why so many Aussies are supporting her today is firstly, obviously the cost of living and the way that Australia has gone, the failures of the Conservative movement here. She's picked up a lot of their votes, and just the Labor Party, the direction that they've taken Australia. But most importantly, I think because of how consistent she's been the whole time, no matter whether on, no matter how much the left and the establishment media have tried to demonize her over the years, but also the fact that she's even on her own side, when they've gone, like we've seen in the last couple of years, they've gone kind of kooky on the right. She hasn't. She's maintained her position. She's had this moral clarity as to what the threat to Australia is, and it's shown. It's cutting through, and Aussies are supporting her and agreeing with her. And
You
what
know,
we saw,
that's
her latest kind of stunt shows it.
we'll get to that video in a second, but I want to expand on your point how she's been consistent for decades. And some of the most successful populist conservatives in the world, for years they toil away in relative obscurity, and then suddenly the world wakes up and says, "Holy smokes, that guy was right." I mean, you and I are friends with Tommy Robinson. He's been fighting this battle for more than a decade, and it's only been in the last year that people have sort of said, wow, he was right. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, for years, he was considered fringe. He got the most seats, if I'm not mistaken, in the recent vote. Nigel Farage, same sort of thing, battling away on Brexit. He doesn't quite have the courage on immigration yet, but he's finding it.
No.
And even the Le Pen family in France. I think that people after 20 years, however much people are opposed to, let's say, Pauline Hanson or Nigel Farage, that number is really not going to change. I mean, you're not going to convince someone today that Nigel Farage is bad or Tommy Robinson is bad because they've been attacked for 20 years. And if they're still standing, I think there's something to showing that you're firm for 20 years. Anyhow, I'm rambling on a little bit, but Pauline Hanson, I remember even in Canada hearing about her 20 years ago. Tell me her latest move, because this goes to the Islamification of the public square, which is a big factor in Australia, just like it is in Canada. Take it away. Tell me the story of Pauline Hanson.
So I think what she did was actually quite clever, and it's not the first time she's done this specific stunt. So let's start with what happened. She tried to bring a motion into Parliament, into the Senate, to ban face covering, including burqas, in public places. She was immediately shut down by the Labor government with the Greens. So what she did was she walked outside the Senate, the chamber, and she put a burqa on and she walked into the chamber. So this wasn't the first time she's done this specific move. She did it about 8 years ago. So this wasn't the first time she was trying to move this motion. She's been, like I said, the establishment's trying to paint her as this, kooky, crazy fringe woman that just has one trick. But the truth is, Aussies are seeing it as this is the one consistent politician who has been fighting for the same thing all these years. So she walked out, came in. You could see here in the footage, she's walking in casually into the Senate, and she takes her seat, and all hell breaks loose. You have, the usual suspects condemning her, screaming around. In fact, on the official the Senate YouTube, or they have the stream there, they cut the mics. You can't hear it. Rukshan, my friend who works sometimes with us at Rebel, he's there in Parliament, and he's saying when they cut it is when you heard the most outrageous, hateful kind of condemnation from the most extreme people like Lydia Thorpe and Marine Faruqi, some of these characters who have done, the craziest stunts within Parliament, but we don't get to see that. He saw it because he's there. He goes, we don't get to see it. They've cut the mics. You see it, but you don't hear anything that's going on. But even what we heard was bad enough. So essentially, she was ordered to leave the Senate chamber. She refused. And her point being that I came in here to debate banning this burqa, and instead of banning it, you refuse to discuss banning it, and then I walk in wearing it, and now you want to ban me for wearing it. So which way do you want to have it?
Yeah. Very interesting and very visual. And I think people are getting a little sick of face coverings. I mean, people tolerated the unusual step during COVID, but I think a lot of people are tired because the Hamas types, the Antifa types, they wear masks for duplicitous reasons. And I cannot believe that any Muslim woman in Australia likes to have their face hidden from the sun. I just don't believe.
Well, it's quite funny because one of the loudest voices against her in Parliament at the moment is Senator Payman, who is a refugee from Afghanistan, escaped the Taliban, who one of the reasons so many refugees got into Australia from Afghanistan was based on women's rights. And one of the first things that happened when the Taliban fell back then, when they were escaping here to Australia, was was women's rights, and one of the laws that they had was the forced wearing of these face coverings. And then you fast forward to today, and you're seeing Payment in Parliament condemning Pauline Hanson for making a mockery of wanting to ban the exact clothing that kind of gave her the reason to be here in Australia, the forced wearing of this. And you see if you look at Afghanistan today, as soon as the Taliban came back up, when the Taliban fell, everybody was, the majority of the country women were pulling off these face coverings. Probably the only ones left wearing it was the ones where their husbands were extremists, forcing them to still wear it. And then as soon as the Taliban took control again, these face coverings became law once again. And here you have, in the safety of Australia, where we welcomed her in because of the abuse to women by that same terrorist organization, now she is in Parliament condemning a woman for standing up. One of the reasons which Pauline Hanson says she's standing up against it is obviously the security. We don't want face coverings here in Australia, whether it's the burqa or, balaclavas or, the Hamas people rallying on our streets, but also because she believes in women's rights. And she knows that most of the women wearing this are not doing it because they want to. It's not a personal choice. And she says those that have the personal choice that want to do it, go ahead and do it in your home. If you want to do it on our streets, then go do it in an Islamic country. But to see Payment kind of fighting her on that point is ludicrous. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like her rivals in the Senate were able to shut her up, shut her down, shut off the mics, shut down debate. But tell me how it's been in the wider country. How have the media treated it? How have grassroots? How have Muslim groups? Is she threatened with any human rights lawsuits? What has been the reverberations of what she did?
Well, if you're following the mainstream media, you'll believe that she's being widely condemned by the entire country as a racist. But if you look online, for example, and you just look at any post, even the mainstream media's own reporting on it, and look at all the comments, the vast majority is in support of her. And those same senators that have stood up and condemned her, the loudest voices against her, their own posts, many of the comments are again with Pauline Hanson. So she has wide public support. She was censured by Parliament. In fact, she has received the harshest penalty in the history of our Parliament for doing this stunt. Remember, what did she do? So the penalty is a 7 day. So she's not allowed to represent Australia in any official capacity on any of these trips that they do as senators. But the harshest penalty is a 7 days sitting. She is banned from Parliament. Now, the last 7-day ban was about 50 years ago, but even that wasn't 7 sitting days. It was 7 days, which turns out to be about 2 or 3 sitting days. So she's not allowed to sit in Parliament that she was elected to represent her constituents for until next year, some point in February. I think is the first time she's going to be allowed to sit again in Parliament, all because she stood up and she said, you know what, you don't want to ban it, I'm going to wear it. And I think it's going to have the opposite effect. I think, she shrugged it off as, I'll cop it, whatever. It doesn't bother me that you censure me. That only creates, has that Messiah effect. I think the average Aussie sees what they're trying to do, and it's not going to work. It's only going to work in her favor. Yeah.
There's something wrong about other politicians saying you may not have certain views that we disagree with. You may not sit in the parliament.
We can't even debate it. It's not even, you can't have the view. We can't debate it. And then if you end up doing the thing you wanted to ban, you see, like if they just debated it and they banned it, it would have been illegal for her to enter the chamber wearing it. And that's why I think it was so masterful and so clever by her and so simple, yes, she has done it before because it is so effective and it got the whole country talking about the issue, that they didn't want anyone to talk about.
Isn't that amazing? Well, Avi, thanks for the report from down under. And I'm sort of jealous that you have people like Pauline Hanson that are allowed to express themselves. I'm not saying I agree with every single thing the woman says. I don't know everything she says. But
I think you'll agree with more than you'll disagree. I think she's, she's a great friend to Rebel News. She's a great friend to Sanity, and I'm just grateful, especially in these times, that we have sensible voices still on the right that don't flip-flop on issues, that are consistent and are willing to take one for the team.